Hey there, welcome back as we go in depth for just a moment. As we mentioned a little earlier in the newscast, tomorrow is a big day when a name that will be in our history books forever will live there in those history books exclusively, as Fort Bragg officially becomes Fort Liberty moving forward. As you well know by now, Fort Bragg is named after Warrenton native and, more importantly, Confederate General Braxton Bragg. And over the past few years, the country decided we shouldn't have national symbols of security and pride named after men who waged war on the United States, largely to protect and expand the slave trade. It's been a huge undertaking to make this name change, and will be finalized with a rather simple and symbolic act of changing the signs on the post from Fort Bragg to Fort Liberty. Simple because, you know, companies change signs all the time. It's pretty routine work. Symbolic, though, because, well, for lots of reasons, but one of those reasons is the people who are doing the actual job. The federal government issued the contract to Southeastern General Contractors. It's a company of people from the Lumbee tribe who have had a very complicated relationship with the federal government. It's a topic that we actually covered in a WRAL documentary called People of the Dark Water back in 1997, describing the Lumbee Indians as the only Native American tribe recognized by the federal government that doesn't get any of the benefits or independence granted to every other recognized tribe, and not just here in North Carolina, but in the country. Now you're saying, Dan, that documentary was 26 years ago. Can't you recommend something a little more current? But, you know, what would be the point? Because nothing has changed in that time. Plus, it features some vintage David Crabtree. So please go to WRALdocumentary.com and check it out. It is worth your time. It's a documentary known very well by the current chairman of the Lumbee tribe, representing more than 60,000 Lumbees in our state, who is actively working with Congress right now to change things.
We have strong bipartisan support, Dan, in the United States Congress. On both sides of the aisle. We are the only tribe in the entire country that is left in this limbo, in this legal limbo of you are a tribe, but you cannot get the services and the benefits. Now, there were a couple other tribes that have been done that way in the past, but every one of those have been rectified.
So the Lumbee Fairness Act is currently making its way through Congress. In February of this year, it was read in the Senate, introduced by our Senator Tom Tillis, who was referred, and then it was referred, rather, to a committee, the Committee on Indian Affairs. And at this point, that is where it sits. It would be a major step to full recognition, which means a government-to-government relationship with the United States. The Lumbees would be self-governed. You know, if you've ever wondered why certain tribes have casinos in states where gambling is illegal, like here, or why tribes made their own rules during COVID, well, that's why. They'd also be eligible for certain legal protections, federal services, benefits, things like that. They could, frankly, change the face of Robinson and surrounding communities where the Lumbee tribe calls home. I know a lot of you already knew this story, but I do think it's worth repeating. I also know there are a lot of people who are new to this state, who just moved here recently, who are maybe hearing all this for the first time. I'd like to hear from both groups. So please, tell me what's on your mind. Send me an email to dan@WRAL.com. Give me your thoughts, and we'll go in depth.
An important piece of history there.